welcome to another edition of the Business of Higher Ed podcast, offered to you by the Fox Education. Today, we're excited to welcome Dr. Asima Vezina. She is the recently appointed President and Vice Chancellor of International Business University in Toronto. Most recently, she spent 8 years as the President and Vice Chancellor at Algoma University. She successfully led the expansion of a multi-campus university, oversaw major capital planning, infrastructure projects in the neighborhood of about 218 million, and she developed a globally recognized partnerships. She has worked in the Ministry of Education or leadership positions in the Ministry of Education and also with district school boards in Northern Ontario. So her leadership and success has been recognized on numerous occasions, most recently, I believe, by the King Charles III Coronation Medal. She was also named the Business Person of the Year by the Brampton Board of Trade. Received the Academic Innovation Award in 2023 from the Network of Nigerians in Canada. And she received the Queen's Jubilee Award in 2023 for exceptional community leadership. Dr. Vezina is noted for her skills and leadership in business transformation, academic oversight, enterprise risk management, which is, of course, a very, very relevant topic right now, and has demonstrated throughout her career at different levels a commitment to student success, innovation, and internationalization. She's also been a leader in truth and reconciliation and decolonization, in Indigenous relationships and education. Congratulations on your appointment to International Business University and on your success at Algoma University, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, David. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today and discussing some of those areas that I think are important to you and that we have to open up spaces to really talk about. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. So let's just set the table here. How would you set the table in terms of describing International Business University and some of the things that it's doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what drew me to IBU, International Business University, was I saw it as somewhat unique. And the more I looked at it, the more I started to understand from my own background, my own training, my own experience, and I guess my own belief systems that this could really help Canada with its aspirations in higher education. And, I had to really have a lot of conversations before coming into the university to truly understand what it was trying to do. And once I understood that, there was no question I wanted to be part of this. And so what I see when I think about IBU is it's really trailblazing. Developed countries all over the world have different education systems. They have public education systems, and then they have either what's called private institutions, or some use the term, like Canada's, independent universities. And what's unique about IBU is it's the first independent of government, independent university that is not for profit. And that's intriguing to me. And then as I've traveled over the many years I've been in leadership, I've had lots of opportunities to study education systems around the world.
Right.
What I've seen is in many developed countries and in many countries around the world, the private or independent university systems and the public university systems are actually complementing each other. The public does this aspect and the independent does this aspect. And what drew me to this university is the ability of IBU to really develop an expertise and a niche in the area of business education. And I think that is needed in Canadian education. I think what I'm seeing is a vibrancy in this school. There's such a dedication to working closely with industry, not just saying it, but actually making a commitment to go very deep in this arena. And so here's what we're working on. I mean, it's when I say go deep, I mean go really deep. So in the first years, what the university did is it set up a center that was specifically doing research with industry in terms of, okay, you're telling us that students coming out of business education are not necessarily prepared to go directly into the workforce. And you're telling us that often there is more training that needs to happen with business graduates to assure that, you know, they understand the banking systems or the intricacies of the systems that the specific industries are using, more work on soft skills, et cetera, more work on management and leadership skills, because often university graduates are going into management positions fairly early in their careers.
Yeah.
The technical skills, the programs that businesses are using. I think what we heard in that first couple of years is we want to work with you so that when they come to our organization that they're ready to jump in. And I think for IBU, they really took that as a challenge. And so what they did with that research, they had some third-party folks helping to build out that research. And what they brought back was a commitment then to weave the research findings into the actual development of the curriculum.
Okay.
Okay. So we've done that. And you know what, have other business schools done that? Oh, I would say probably yes, right? But the weaving in was a very important first step. What they also now are incorporating is that in the capstone projects that students have to do, particularly in the MBA programs, which is where the bulk of our students are sitting right now, the capstone then is developed to be connected to real world challenges that industry are facing. And for students to have that opportunity to work very closely with industry on a challenge that they're facing. Now, the beauty of this, as it's being developed, is that not only does the student get the opportunity to work on the industry problem, but the student has a faculty member that has like tremendous expertise in that area. So for example, we know particularly small and mid-sized businesses in Ontario are really struggling to implement AI solutions to maintain competitive edge, right? We know this is a challenge. They don't necessarily have the ability to bring resources in to transform their operation. They don't necessarily have the time to go out and do the research to find the best solutions, right? So sometimes they're picking things very quickly without having the opportunity to research. And if they're over a certain age group, they may be completely uncomfortable and out of their element with what's happened so quickly in terms of the transformation that's happening right now. So what I see is a wonderful opportunity then for businesses in Ontario to say, hey, like this is the challenge that I'm working on. I would love to work with a student that's coming out of your master's program. And you know, to be able to have then a supervisor that has a very strong background, let's say in AI, an aspect of AI. Now those two can be matched with the industry to really try to help solve that challenge and support that mid-size or small, business. That to me is where the magic is, right? And then the student has something to put on their resume that, you know, this is the project that I took, this is the expertise I built while I was in IBU, I specialized in this area, and you know, here I am ready for for the workforce. On top of that, what we're starting to develop, again, remembering that we're a very young university, but one of the things we're starting to develop is outside of the curriculum. So throughout, whether they're in the e-commerce programming, 3 or 4 year programming, or they're in the MBA stream, that they have opportunity to weave in the micro-credentials or the badging credentials to really help them focus their learning. Now, that might be a little bit in the soft skills, that may be specific programs they want to learn and get credentialed in. They may want to do something in project management, they may want to do something in Lean Six Sigma, whatever it is, that we are really working on building out something that is connected to their learning experience while they're at IBU. And then the other area that we're really thinking about right now is how can we be leaders in transforming classroom delivery? And you know, a lot of people are having this conversation right now. I think where IBU has a bit of an advantage is we can move fairly quickly. We can bring experts in fairly easily. We are not potentially dealing with the same financial challenges and underfunding that public institutions are describing at this moment. And so we want to be a model for others, and we think, okay, if AI is here, if artificial and virtual reality is here, XR technologies, immersive technologies, how can we utilize that to really transform the experience for our learners to make it much more immersive, so that they are, you know, what's wrong with them putting on the goggles and actually going in and having that experience and then debriefing that in the classroom afterwards. We can do things pretty, like, this is such a beautiful time in education. And I think, you know, I love the fact that colleges and universities across the world are having these conversations. And so we want to partner, right? We want to talk to others. We want to say, what are you doing in this space? Here's what we're doing in this space. And honestly, David, I don't see it as a competition. I see it as we can do something pretty unique and special at IBU. Others will be doing similar kinds of things. And for those that want to really get in this space and nurture it and create innovation and entrepreneurship across the organization, then I think those are the organizations that are going to thrive tomorrow. And I guess that's, in a nutshell, why I came. I see the ability to really nurture innovation, entrepreneurship, new ideas, and bring forward models of education that are going to really adapt us to the changing landscape in higher education. And we've always said, right, we have to change with the times. We have to be relevant for students. We have to do this, we have to do that. What I see at IBU is a clear intent.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Yeah.
Clear commitment.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. You bring that up. Maybe your ears were burning. I just did an interview with he's not in the education system, but the podcast talking to him, he was talking about the immersive experience and the VR and the AI. And I mean, he's got a very ambitious vision, but as you said, the goggles, you know, immersing, you know, but also using this kind of leadership, this kind of to, in a way, build upon engagement with students. Students want to be on campus. There's stuff that they're interested in doing on campus, and the community, right? So when we're talking about VR or that type of thing, how we can bring in and support the community and industry, and they can support us too. Yeah, that's that's really an interesting thing in this conversation with him. Boy, oh boy, if he's the opportunities in terms of, I mean, creating micro internships, for example, through VR is it's remarkable. Creating he's talking about recreating individuals, oneself, and then building and building and building to the point that you're accessing all your knowledge, but then also accessing, high quality. It can't be the low level AI stuff, high quality knowledge and expertise in education, in industry, and packing all that into a program. And health and wellness, athletic training, all sorts of things. So really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like when I think about business education, we can't think of business education as we thought of business education 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
No.
It's so much more than the traditional business education that we used to think would sort of support our business graduates in industry. Like today, there is, you cannot separate. People have said, well, you're considering a move into some pretty heavily focused technology areas. Why is that? Are you moving away from your business focus? And my answer to that is no, that the two have got to go. Our business leaders of tomorrow have got to be technically savvy, right? Like they need to understand how technology can build efficiencies into the company that they're starting or that they're supporting. And the current data would support the fact that industry is not ready for this. Yes, there will be some outliers that are able to adapt and adopt very quickly. But as I said, many, particularly in a country that is aging and is trying to bring young people in, there is a capacity issue here. So I think that the graduates that are coming out of IBU, I'll speak about IBU today, but the graduates that are coming out of IBU with both of these strong curriculum skill sets, graduates that have a strong business foundation and a strong understanding of how technology supports all business applications, then I think those are the graduates that are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, right? And whether that's leading in the technical side of things, if it's moving through the organization from entry-level manager positions to directors to CEOs, C-suite positions, or running the show. These are the graduates, I think, that are going to lead companies, successful companies in the future.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. No.
having said that, right, there's all these other things that we're going to talk about today. Business ethics, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Business and climate change, business and sustainability. So again, rounding that program off to make sure that we're not just creating robotic type things, that we have to get the soft skills. We have to put the heart in the program. We have to look after our communities. We have to look after our world. And I think part of where I come from, Algoma University was very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to embed, I guess, or weave in the grandfather teachings into the culture of the organization. And those grandfather teachings are very important. And one of the things that I learned a little bit more about, and this comes from many cultures, is the importance of being futuristic, right? Thinking about what will the decisions of today impact on the future of tomorrow. And if we think about our own children and their children's children.
Yeah.
My decision on a water policy today or on a mining decision tomorrow, what will the impact of that be generations from now? And I think that it's really important for us to be working with our students today to have that type of thinking, right? That you're not only impacting today's world, but these decisions matter for tomorrow. And and so I want to make sure that that you and that we get in this podcast, the importance that it's not just about business.
What I talk about with students is, the value. The value is the thinking. The value is taking what you know and applying it, but being open to, making mistakes, taking risks, under reasonable risks, and that there's just certain skills that lifelong learning, technology, as technology continues to evolve. I mean, students coming out of post-secondary education, the idea that they're in business or they're in medicine or they're in, I mean, it's not that, like when we have the government decisions about certain programs that are going to be promoted because we have a need for people in those programs, and business is not incorporated as a general heading. But the frustrating thing to me, or the point I would say, is that you can have STEM, okay, you can have healthcare, you can have, but business and elements of business are in all of these things. And so, yeah, you may graduate with an MBA and you may end up running, a hospital. Okay. Maybe not. I talked a few months ago about branding and with a higher ed branding person. And her comments on branding were very, in higher ed in Canada, were very interesting. And so if you were to describe IBU's brand, how might you describe that?
I mean, there's a lot to that question. I think, everybody says personalized education.
Right. Yeah.
So when you actually get into an organization, you understand what that actually means. And I would say the branding element of personalized education always requires us to be taking a close look. So at IBU, so as soon as I came in, I spoke to a lot of students and I wanted to understand what their experience was. And they described IBU as their community, their family. Mm-hmm. They actually gave very specific examples of how people at IBU had really helped them, had been a huge support. They spoke about their faculty, right? And not only were the faculty teaching them, but they were connecting them in community. They were sharing much more than just what was happening in the curriculum with them. They were helping them to get connected to jobs and different opportunities like that. But they also felt very fortunate to have the quality and skill set of the faculty that we have. And we've been really particular about the full-time hiring. We've been working very hard to attract some of the best, I would say, in Canada, because we want our students to have that. And they are clear, they are coming for an education. And when they leave, they want assurance that they put 2 or 4 years in. They want that assurance that they are going to be ready for their career. Like you said, there is no magic bullet here. You can do 4 years of education or 2 years of education. You have to continue to upskill and reskill. Yeah. As all of us who are successful know, the learning never stops.
Right.
They want to be sure that IBU as a choice has done that for them. So we make a promise to our students that what we say we're going to provide, we are absolutely going to provide that. And classes are small. I don't believe there's a class at IBU that's over 50 students. The professors know the students by name, whether you're in first year or second year or fourth year. Your classes remain small. You have access to your faculty. Our faculty are here. The students come for face-to-face learning, right? Yes, they may have an online course here and there, but the vast majority of their classes are right here on site. And I think that's important. Students need to know how to navigate online learning? Absolutely. We owe it to students to give them good experiences in learning virtually. But I think most students want to be talking with you in a room right now. Will that change as technology improves and our ability to use technology improves? I think so. And we also understand, and we are putting an MBA online for accessibility reasons. We understand as well that, you know, there are a lot of working folks out there that just cannot give 2 days a week or, you know, that kind of time to they need the flexibility of their families, they have to work, there's lots of reasons why they can't get here. So we're really thinking about what does personalized education mean then online, in a virtual setting? How do we recreate that same kind of feeling that you're part of a family, that your experience is personalized, that you're feeling connected to the community? And that's a big conversation in our university. But I think relationships matter. And I think students are looking for personalized. I do feel like some universities are doing it really well and others are claiming it, but is it really happening? You'd have to ask the students.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. Everybody says personalized and we're a community and these types of things. It is the experience and as you said, you know, talking to students and what is important to them? What do they this instructor, their experience with this instructor and what that instructor has done, their experience in the hallways, their, you know, we talk about, you know, opportunities to stay on campus and participate in things that might not otherwise be. So yeah, that I think that's really great, and that it is actually being implemented. It's actually being done. As much as you can call creating experiences being done. I actually interviewed one of your graduates, and who took me through his capstone, and he was speaking a lot about the experience and using video and international students, and what they wanted to feel, what they wanted to see, what was attractive to them about IBU. So kudos for the work that's already been done and will continue to be done. I'm a big fan of partnerships. And IBU has partnered with international institutions to host a transatlantic symposium on sustainable development in higher education, fostering collaboration and dialogue to advance sustainability in business education. IBU also has launched, I think from the get-go, or pretty close to the get-go, the Center for Sustainable Business. We're in a very unique time right now in many, many ways. In some ways unexpected, in some ways maybe it could be expected. From a geopolitical environment, required or desired shifting of international economies and trade. And we're also in a country that is very, it is heavily dependent for its success, for its economy in terms of natural resources, mining being a very big one. How do you balance in education the sustainability and what sustainability will mean, and profit? Because in order for our economy to do well, in large part, that natural resource component is there and it's going to be there. And that's actually something that makes us competitive internationally. But doing that, obviously has sustainability issues, sustainability challenges. In a business education, how do you view preparing your students to balance, let's drill or dig, because people want what we have, with the importance of sustainability, although it may not be as directly impactful on profit.
Yeah, I mean,
and you come from the north
this
too.
Is a very, it's a very, very complex question that we could actually hold a whole conference on that question. Let me give you two examples that I prepared for our talk today, because I think they really do speak about the value of continuing to do this work alongside industry, universities, industry, and government. Sometimes, in the headlines, we get a sense that government is not supporting, or there's an international pressure to move more towards profit because of different things like tariffs, and that's going to be the focus of the day is dealing with these tariffs. But these things will pass, right? There is always going to be an in the moment pressure on businesses and corporate Canada. But again, I think I think about some of the wisest mentors who owned businesses who took me under their wing, and just gave me different advice throughout my leadership time. And one of the things that I'll always remember is politicians will come and go, political platforms will come and go, but just continue to do those things that are important. Sometimes you might have to slow it down a little bit. Sometimes you might have to adjust in the moment because of new policy or funding regulations or whatever they are. But it's the long game that we're playing, right? So don't lose sight of the long-term vision. There's always going to be little hiccups along the way that you're going to have to manage and navigate. And we cannot transform and change everything at once. So the two examples that kind of came to my mind, one is a company, and I mean, it doesn't matter which company, right? But this company's caught my eye. I've just been kind of watching them because of my connection to forestry. So when I was up at Lakehead, they had a forestry program. When I was up in Ontario Northeast, I was watching forestry companies and their practices. And we were also looking at mills closing over time, right? The pulp and paper industry got decimated. But I also was exposed to clear cutting, right? And then the reforestation processes and practices of companies, the need to bring government policy into place with forestry companies, because you can't just take all the trees and not put good practice into reforestation, right? And so this company is quite interesting, and the name of it is Flash Forest. Okay, and I'll just give you a quick update in terms of what they're doing. But they're working on improving the efficiencies of tree planting and reforestation. So that's their goal. They want to plant 1 billion trees. That's their vision, to plant 1 billion trees. Now, I've been through this. I don't know if you have, but have you ever planted trees? Like lots of trees, thousands.
Not like they do in the north, no.
Right? Okay, so I mean, we used to see the buses of the tree
The university kids.
University students, and would take 4 months of the summer and go tree planting, and it would be a bit of an adventure. But it's extremely manual. It's hard to keep the employees. You're dealing with the elements, sometimes wind and bears and mosquitoes and rains and storms, and you're living in, often it was trailers. I don't know what it looks like today because I have not really been in that landscape for a while. But these were difficult conditions for forestry companies to manage, and so now I see this company that wants to innovate. And so what they've done is they've taken drone technology, AI, robotics, science, and they have really brought something very innovative to reforestation. And so what they're doing right now is they're taking seed pod technology, biologists, they've done field trials, and through this pod technology and the use of drones, they can now seed up to 800,000 seeds a day using their drone technology and the creation of these pods. Inside the pods, they have created an environment for the seed to flourish. So they don't just go automatically, you know how the planes used to just seed.
Yeah.
They don't automatically just get thrown on the ground and they have to survive and the strongest seeds will survive, but these pods are created to increase the likelihood of survival. So now you're building efficiency in. You no longer have to have 500 tree planters. You can have a drone doing the same kind of work with higher efficiency and better outcome. So that's one example where I think this is something that is going to be, I think, first of all, you think about this, the research that was involved, the types of graduates, the interdisciplinary approach of AI, biologists, robotics, machine learning, all of that stuff comes together to innovate a new idea. So, you know, we always joke you don't want the same heart surgeon that has not been trained treating your heart attack with 50-year-old technology, right? We don't want that in our hospitals.
Oh, don't want that. No.
I think industries are also starting to really think about their practices. What they did 50 years ago, 20 years ago may not be the best way forward, right? And so as we bring all of these scientists and engineers and applied research all come together, we can do pretty amazing things with and alongside industry. And I think that's the new way forward. So if we can cultivate innovation in our young people, then these things are, I think, are going to be natural in the evolution of industry and business and what we're moving into. So do I see the two competing together? No, I see real efficiency in AI and in technology, and I see businesses thriving if they can find the way forward. But we can't force, right? If you force, you're just going to end up with problems. So that's the first example. Second example was in the town that I grew up in, Sault Ste. Marie, where I worked at Algoma University for quite some time, and I also worked in the school board for some time. And Algoma Steel was always sort of at the forefront of these questions around environmental issues and, you know, the emissions and the carbon footprint. And so they are now, I don't know if they're the first in Canada, but it is the largest project in Canada right now, going green, so green steel. And basically what they're building right now is these two state-of-the-art electric arc furnaces that are going to actually replace the old blast furnaces, right, which had the coke making and the oxygen steel making operations. And so they are now the largest decarbonization project in Canada. And that's happening in Northern Ontario, right? Like it's amazing. And so now you see researchers from Algoma and other universities coming to help with the research pieces that the steel plant want to do, right? So let's measure the carbon emissions as we move forward, and let's showcase what's happening here. They've been challenged. Like I remember one time where the university challenged some of what they were doing, and then there was this big discussion between the university professors and the administration of the steel plant, and it actually was a beautiful conversation because there was an opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings. They walked away with some projects. I actually know university students that are still working on some of the projects today in terms of the land reclamation work that's going on. There's been new discoveries. So these are the things that can happen when universities and industries work together. And you don't get to the place where you can adopt a new technology without the research, the innovation, the engineers. The universities are places where industries can try things, can work on new inventions, et cetera, et cetera. So do I think it's going away? No, I don't. I think we are in this, and we're going to continue to see really good sustainable practices that protect the environment, but also allow industry, business, to really thrive. And I think the ones that do are going to pave the the way forward for success, our business leaders of tomorrow. So, what do we want to teach them in the classrooms? Well, one of the first things is if you are committed to sustainability, and many of our students are, they want to change the world, right? They see, they articulate this to us all the time. We are in trouble. Our world is in trouble. The climate of our world is changing more quickly than we could have ever imagined. The destruction that's caused by that, so these are things that they understand this, they're watching it in real time and they're concerned about it. So if you can start to help our business leaders of tomorrow through their programming, understand how to present an ROI. These are business 101, these are fundamentals, right? If I invest in this technology, here is the ROI for the investment. For every dollar I spend on this initiative or this innovation or this technology, this is what we will come back to, and can really clearly articulate, communicate, and understand the value of, why should we do this as a company?
Yeah.
These leaders, I think, will help the more traditional companies and leaders see the value in moving forward in this way. And I have seen this in my experience, that once you are able to articulate it and you can actually show the ROI, and like I said, we have to always remember, we're not going to transform everything overnight. Like we have to be in the long game, and the long game is decades, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do? It's baby steps, or maybe some of us aren't comfortable with baby steps, but it's steps at a time. It's not trying to kind of come in with, you got to do 1,000 things, or we're going to cut, funding, or we're going to charge you with this, or because people are really trying to figure this out. Businesses we know are struggling. And in a time where we're putting tariffs on businesses, this isn't the time to say you must spend $1 million or $5 million on sustainability, but partnerships is what can happen, right? So if the government's putting some funding in, may not be as much as we want right now. If the industries are putting some funding in, and the universities and colleges and higher education are really trying to help with some of the innovation in their labs, right? The beauty of IBU is we can specialize our labs to what industry needs right now. So instead of spending money on a ton of things, let's do 2 or 3 things that we know will help with the challenges that we have today, and will give our students tremendous experience. So when they go into these challenges, they've already had some experience with it. And we've shown them the case studies of Algoma Steel and some of these other ones that I've suggested. They've been close to these projects, so they can see that, when someone says, oh, sustainability costs too much, they can say, well, you know what, I've studied 20 examples of where companies can still do these kinds of things, but here's a way forward, right?
Yeah, that comes back, I think, to what I believe in, and what you have said before is the critical thing for business, whether you're in accounting or marketing or management, whatever, which is the why. Can you explain the why? Can you describe the value?
Simon Sinek's work, right?
At Algoma, one of the things that you excelled at was multi-campus expansion, forging globally recognized partnerships. How can you give some examples of how you're going to leverage that experience of success at Algoma to continually drive IBU's growth in Toronto, internationally, academically, through pathways?
Yeah, it's a big question again. And when I think about partnerships, so if we sort of situate Algoma and the learnings there were different levels of partnership. And so the special mission of that university was very much steeped in responding to the needs of community and also working closely with Indigenous communities and Indigenous partnerships. And that special mission really permeated a lot of what we were doing. And so at Algoma, the idea was we needed to listen to the cities that we were serving, which would, in that case was Timmins, Brampton, and Sault Ste. Marie. And then we needed to look for partnerships to kind of service the needs of those communities. Working very closely with the municipality and then the different government levels of government. But that naturally then takes you out to other places. So if we think about IBU and what IBU is trying to do, what I see then is we have to work with the business community. Now, as you mentioned, this is global. Like, we have gone completely global as a world, and it's so easy to connect now. So let me just give you an example of a couple things that we're working on. So just got back from India, and one of the things that we wanted to understand a little bit more were opportunities for our students in India. We have a good, healthy population of Indian students studying IB curriculum. Many of those students will want to return to India. Many of those students would prefer to study part of their term in India and come to Canada.
All right.
It's very costly to be here for 4 to 6 years, right? Especially at the international rates, because you know, government doesn't support a lot, like the international students with the corridor funding and those sorts of things. So the universities have to charge more. So, you know, when we went to India, we were doing a few things, but one of the things we did is we met with a number of the business networks. And what we learned there was, don't quote me on this, but I think there's 800 Canadian companies in India right now. And so we started to talk with some of the players that were there. They hosted a networking evening for us. And boy, was there ever a lot of interest in our graduates, right? Because they speak both languages, they're trained in both systems, we're providing an education that will be valuable to these companies. And if we can do internships and work on some of these capstone projects, this creates a pathway to employment for them, but also helps these industries that are trying to work between both countries. These students can go between countries if they so desire. And so the conversations were fascinating. That was exploratory. Out of that, we'll go back and we'll start to deepen the conversations on pathways for students. The other thing, of course, we did is we looked at opportunities. Where could we situate programming in India where students can do some of like a 4-year program in their hometowns or in the country of India and then come over. And again, that's all about accessibility and giving those opportunities to the students to have the best of both worlds and to keep their costs down. So that's another area we're exploring. Here in Toronto, we're connecting with groups like the Chamber of Commerce. You know, when I was in Algoma, we were very close to the Brampton Board of Trade and the Chamber in Sault Ste. Marie because they become very important partners, right? They can help get messaging out. They can help host events where you're trying to connect with employers. And then from there, you go much deeper with the partnerships. Partnerships with universities. Again, we talked about the international conference on sustainability. I mean, there are, just counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 universities that are organizing partners in that conference, doing incredible work. So immediately our faculty start creating partnerships and the opportunities to expand on research opportunities or programming opportunities. I've seen classroom teachers teaching courses together, you know, one in this country, one in this country, but using technology. They're bringing their classes together. That's where the magic happens, right? And so any partnerships that we can create that will have meaningful and lasting impact on our students and our faculty are partnerships that we want to pursue. And many of those partnerships, as you kind of create the nucleus, will actually self-develop. So out of this conference, we will see new partnerships emerging for sure. And not just with the universities, right? At that conference, you're thinking about Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, the European School of Sustainability, Science and Research, Inter-University Sustainable Development Research Program, the UK Consortium of Sustainability Research, the German Consortium of Sustainability Research. Like, these are all connections that we're making by co-hosting that international conference here in Toronto in June. So
partnerships help on any number of levels. International is everything. And so if we're educating people to compete and have jobs in the business world or in whatever world, they have to be able to be nimble,
yes.
work with in international teams, work with technology that allows teams to come together, creating teams. But also, as you know, one of the things you mentioned is soft skills of the team and the group and the understanding of what's important here and what's important here, and making those connections work. So it sounds
and
very
building cross-cultural acumen, I think, is so important, and these partnerships can really nourish that. And you know, the idea that we want our graduates to have multi-world view perspectives, right, or to value diversity in the boardroom table or in the decision-making table, to understand that when we bring different perspectives to the table, we're going to end up with stronger decisions. And so, you know, even if students get access through conferences and through capstones, and I think it better prepares them to be able to work globally, because most big companies now are working globally and have international partners. And so I think that, you know, that's an edge that we can give our students for sure.
And there are a number of companies that, in order to move up, are expecting professionals to do, some companies call it a tour of duty, are expecting people to go work in another country for however long as part of moving up. And so it's kind of blended in there.
And language acquisition, right? I mean, language acquisition is becoming very important. I mean, one of the things that IBU's doing, which I was fascinated, I thought was so good, is every student that comes here can actually take the French programming.
Of course, I saw that.
Their ability to speak and communicate in French. And many students are taking advantage of that. They understand the importance of the French language in Canada, but also how it positions them in other parts of the world as well. So
I want to move on to something else, which is kind of a very interesting aspect of IBU. You have an articulation agreement with Vega Academy, which my understanding is offers in-person and online secondary school programs and diplomas. So students attending Vega Academy, which is in Canada, and meeting certain requirements, they can earn dual credits, right? So credit for high school, credit at IBU, maybe. And if they meet certain credentials, they're also eligible for sort of a facilitated or guaranteed entry into IBU. What kinds of relationships do you think we're going to need to see? Are we going to need to grow to have this financial sustainability, but also the need for lifelong learning, lifelong development, re-education, upskilling, reskilling?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball on that question. I think it's complicated and confusing for a lot of the leaders in higher education to kind of have a solid vision of where higher education is moving, because there used to be very clear-cut goals for people to be in, and that's all changed in the last, I would say in the last 3 years, actually. It's been so much change.
Not been very long.
No. So we're seeing colleges offering degree programs. Now we're seeing them entering the masters. We're seeing universities offering micro-credentials. We now have independent universities and private or career colleges that are in the landscape. And so it's an interesting mix of opportunities. So what do I see? I actually think, I think clarity is good, but I do think that students are going to be able to really choose what's best for them right now. And so whether that's studying in my home community that only has a college, or studying in an Indigenous institute that has a pathway into university, but I can start my first 2 years there where I'm comfortable, where high schools and universities have clear pathways to each other, but students can get their feet wet in summer programs that count, right? So they get credit on both. Very hard for high school students. I know I spent time as a high school teacher to motivate students to take extra university courses on top of what they're doing in the high school. So it makes sense to integrate these things. In terms of IBU, I think we're looking for like-minded partners who see value in pathways and accessibility for students. So we are in conversation with a number of partners in Canada and across the world to explore these opportunities. Most people know them as 2+2s, 3+1s, 4+1s, 5+, whatever it is, these pluses. But my experience is those are not going too far in terms of large numbers of students coming into colleges or universities. That the pathway and how that, often we're still sitting in a bit of a competitive landscape. And so when we're going to the tables, we're really talking about what would be mutually beneficial to both partners, but also has potential to really help the community and the student find their way to higher education. And I think the higher a student can go in their education, or the higher the education index for a community, better the outcomes are, right? In health, in the economy, everything. So really, it's in my mind, partnerships matter. Partnerships need to be nurtured. You can't just set up a 2+2 and expect it's going to just all of a sudden blossom. And it's got to be sort of mutually impactful and not seen as something that's going to compete. The students go to your organization for 2 years, well, you lose 2 years of revenue. So we're really thinking about creative and new and emerging models of partnership with higher education organizations that can sustain the test of time and will actually produce. And I think, what are students looking for? I think we've got to think long and hard about, does a student need 4 years in degree and 2 years in a master's to come out and be able to do what, right? To work in a bank and potentially climb a ladder. Does it need 6 years for that? Do I need 6 years if I want a business degree that will get me ready to start a business?
Right.
Do I need, do I need a 4-year degree for my career aspirations? Should I look at a 3+1? So in 4 years, right? And people will say that's watering down the curriculum. But when you talk to students, they're saying, you know what, you're forcing me to take a lot of classes that I'm questioning whether I need. Now, sometimes they're 18 years old or 19 years old. I remember when we were running the project management and we put some courses that introduced people to Canadian culture. We had some courses that were really focusing a little bit more on the soft skills and some of these sort of important things for students to think about as business leaders of the future, project managers. At first, they did not see the value of it, right? Like, why are you making me take this course, right? But when they graduated, they came back and said, those courses
those are some of the most valuable courses, and that's my experience too. My friends laughed at a course that I took. As I said, I did my undergrad in a private business school in the States, and they just howled because I had to take a course called professional speaking. And they just thought that was funniest thing, right? But let me tell you, there's very few courses that I have used the knowledge from so consistently. And I can remember, we started reading books to kids, and then we moved to this, and then we moved to poetry, and then we moved to pitches. And yeah, no, I think you talk about where the magic happens, and I think the magic happens a lot of times in the gaps. And how do we make those, like, again, do we need 4 years? Do we need 6 years? Do we need how does AI how to enter all of this? You
And I think
you
those
can
are
create your own learning program.
these are big questions that I think
Yeah,
we have to be talking about them in the higher education sector, right? And the value we put on college education and university education, can we combine some of the applied with the theoretical?
yeah.
And do universities have to stay, entrenched in the theoretical, which I see they're not, right? Like there's lots of um, new approaches being adopted, but then there's sort of that, like, well, what is a university, right? And what do we value? And some of
It's a
this
very
is
deep
the test
question.
of time. They're very deep questions, and they're very sensitive questions, right?
Yes,
And so, but
yes.
again, we also need to hear the student voice and the parent voice. And, and when they are questioning, really 6 years at this amount every year, and I have very little choice in what I'm learning and how I'm learning. So I think this personalized education and in these partnerships, like students need to have so I actually imagine someday, and I think it's happening in some schools, and I'm really looking for these models. I think students will design their learning
Yeah,
experience because they know this is where I want to end up. I'm curious about these things. Let's make it interdisciplinary. Like the example of the innovation with the tree planting. That came from multidisciplinary. The person who led that understood the value of an interdisciplinary team to approach the innovation and brought those players back. So business leaders of tomorrow, I mean, my undergrad was an English degree from Lakehead, right? Why did I get into English? Because I just loved it, right?
yeah,
Then I realized, well, I'm not sure I want a career in English. But I think it is part of the reason I'm so successful today is I had that. So I often
yeah.
tell people, get the undergraduate degree completed. You go on to do your master's, you go on to do your PhD, you take leadership development courses along the way. What you learn in university is going to set you up for a career path that you may not have even imagined yet, right?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, there's so much room there. Micro credentials, continuing education, co-curricular, everything. Just the distinctions, how schools are going to distinguish themselves, and you've talked a bit about that with the northern school, certainly where I grew up in Southern Ontario. If I were to come to you and I were to say, okay, I'm a university or a college, what do you see as the key trend, critical things moving forward in the near future for higher education?
It depends what part of higher education you're thinking about. I mean, we are in a pivotal moment in higher education in Canada, and people are really focusing in on the challenges facing higher education right now, and there is no limit to the challenges. So I think, as sort of a seasoned veteran, I guess, lots of bumps and bruises along the way, I would say don't just focus on the challenges. In challenging periods, that's the time for innovation. And it's a time to really look deeply into your organization and say, what does differentiate us? What does make us unique? At IBU, we want to be the best in delivering business education, and we're defining that with industry and with some key business partners to ensure that the students that we graduate are industry ready. We don't apologize for that, right? We know the students that are coming to us want to be ready for a career in business, or they want to start up their own business. And so that's our focus. So, in my mind, we have to be able to define it. I think it'll be very important for higher education to really think about their financial models and where the revenues are coming from, and to be able to adapt a little, probably quickly, without losing sight of who they are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Quality is going to be, quality matters.
Well, and how your students view quality,
You know,
right?
if I can just have that final word, I still think Canada is and will remain one of the strongest education systems in the world, right? And I think, you know, what I'm excited about is the number of conversations that are going on across the country and in this organization. I'm part of that, to really think futuristically, and so I think I am seeing some really innovative conversations going on. Doing that in a period of economic restraint it challenges us, right? But I mean, my goodness, we're PhDs, we're masters, we're business leaders, we're community members. What an opportunity for us to really think about the next 5 years and what we can imagine and what we might be able to do. And that's where I think we've got to put our energy right now. Yes, we need to continue to lobby for certain things, and we need clarity, and we need a little bit of stability, particularly with some of the policies that have come in the last year and a half. Right, that's really challenged a lot of organizations, and I do worry about the sector. But I think, you know, if you look at higher education over time, we have the skills to figure this out. You know, so maybe I just leave it there.
You've been very generous with your time and expertise. So for those of you watching, if you have comments, if you have questions, please put them in the comment section below. Like, subscribe. The bio for Dr. Vezina will be included in the comments on the YouTube channel. And Dr. Vezina, thank you very much for being so generous with your time and your expertise and sharing that with us today. A very interesting conversation, lots of things to think more about. And for those who are watching, have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.